Welcome to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith, and today I'm bringing you my April TBR. Whew, how are we already on April? We've shifted things around a bit, so the TBR is where we really get our teeth into what the books are. I go like this because they are currently surrounding me in a heap, because what is an organised pile when you are me? So I have my laptop here, I have my books, I have my lists, I have pretty much everything I'm going to need, and you're going to listen to me waffle about books for a little bit. Hope you're doing okay. We're going to go in a bit of an odd order. And it's because it's how they are sorted in my TBR list on my computer. So we're going to go in vague order of original publication date, which is an odd way of doing it, but also does actually mean that the review copies go to the end, which is pretty much how I do things normally. The only thing it does change is that the rereads are mixed in with the ordinary books, which, you know, don't hate that. Don't hate it. I have picked 5 rereads at random from my reread jar. Let's go. First up, the oldest book on my TBR at the moment is Terry Pratchett's Strata. This is a little dinky old paperback. I love the old covers on these. I mean, let's just all appreciate this lady's boob armour. Hang on, gonna focus on her? There we go. The excavation showed that the fossilised plesiosaur had been holding a placard which read, "End nuclear testing now." That was nothing unusual, but then came a discovery of something which did intrigue Kinnaird, a flat earth with something new. This is not actually a Discworld novel, I don't think. I think it's a science fiction novel, which would explain why there are kind of robots and stuff on it. I've not read much of Terry Pratchett's stuff that isn't Discworld. I think if anything, I've only read the kind of Johnny and the Bomb, Johnny Saves Mankind, no, Only You Can Save Mankind, Johnny and the Something Else books, and I quite enjoyed them. So yeah, this will be interesting. It's a very, very short book. It's only about 200 pages, so that'll be a nice quick win this month. Next up is a reread. This is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, our incredibly battered edition. I've just, and when I say just, I mean before I put the camera on, I just finished my reread of the illustrated edition of the Order of the Phoenix. I quite enjoyed that. Obviously, reading Harry Potter again as an adult, you spot a lot more of the more problematic things that happen, but it's still nostalgic and good, and this is the first Harry Potter that I read when it released. I was in year 3. I read it over like a week and a half. I was like, I'm gonna read this. I'm looking forward to getting back into this. This book has some of my favourite scenes. We have the kind of cleaning scene at Grimmauld Place. That's one of my favourites. I think that's in this book. If not, it's in the next one. I'm not crazy about talking about Harry Potter on this channel. You can watch my TBR from March to hear about why, but I am rereading them. It's happening. That will be happening this month. Another one of the books that I picked up in my haul from World of Books, my secondhand book haul, this is Before They Are Hanged by Joe Abercrombie. I will put spoiler tags in if you want to skip me reading the blurb of this, because it may involve spoilers for book 1, which is called something or other. I can't remember now. The Blade itself? I think. Anyway, how do you defend a city surrounded by enemies and riddled with traitors when your allies can by no means be trusted and your predecessor vanished without trace? It's enough to make a torturer want to run, even if he could walk without a stick. And Inquisitor Glocktar needs to find answers before the Gurkish army comes knocking at the gates. Northmen have spilled over the Anglan border and are spreading fire and death across the frozen country. Crown Prince Ladislas is poised to drive them back and win undying glory. There is only one problem. He commands the worst armed, worst trained, worst led army in the world. And Bayaz, the first of the Magi, is leading a party of bold adventurers on a mission through the ruins of the past. Most hated woman in the south, most feared men in the north, and most selfish boy in the Union make strange companions, but if only they didn't hate each other so much, potentially deadly ones. Ancient secrets will be uncovered, bloody battles will be won and lost, bitter enemies will be forgiven, but not before they are hanged. I really enjoyed the first book in this series, and I wanted to get to the second and then subsequently the third before I forgot what happened in the first one. So I think I read the first one in February. I can't remember a huge amount about what happened in book 1, but I feel like there will be recaps for this series, so that should be fine. It's going to be good. Some grimdark. I feel like Pratchett and Harry Potter followed by some grimdark will be an interesting mix, so maybe I won't read this in this order. Next up, another reread and another R author. My R bookshelf is looking remarkably diminished. You can just about see how many empty slots there are. This is The Wise Man's Fear by Pat Rothfuss. This is the second book in the Kingkiller Chronicle. Kingkiller Chronicle. That's fun to say. This follows on from Name of the Wind. Obviously people are awaiting book 3. It's interesting, I have friends who have very mixed opinions about this book. I know some people who love it to death, for whom it is one of their favourite fantasy books of all time. I know some people who read it after they got into fantasy and it's like, oh well, it's kind of basic. So I think it's one of those books where it completely depends on when you pick it up. I read the sequel quite some time ago now. I want to say it was in 2018. Long-winded epic fantasy. The main character is a bit of a pain, but enjoyable. Magic University, Again, I think it'll depend on what you think of fantasy in general, how much of it you've read, how much of it you see in other things. Yeah, I'm interested to get with this. I'm not going to read the blurb on this because I think it would probably be too much of a difficulty from book one. This next one is incredibly slim. This is And Then Came the Flood, which is a collection of sorts by Lacey Roop. Lacey Roop is a poet I think I discovered through YouTube probably about 10 years ago, and I bought this off her website. It was one of my first. I purchased this from America and it had to come all the way here purchases, but this is an absolutely lovely poetry collection. I feel like poetry is something I really love to read, but I very rarely actually buy poetry books, so when I do they tend to be fairly treasured. As you can see, this is a little bit battered, but I'm looking forward to reading this. I think I'm going to spread this out throughout the month to have a little bit peppered in throughout. But yes, lovely, really, really lovely, and very excited. Then, in order of publication, I have already started this. This is my audiobook from last month. I've got 16 hours and 25 minutes left on this, so I'm not very far in at all. This is Dragon Keeper by Robin Hobb. Dragons have returned to the world. Guided by the dragon Tintaglia, the serpents came from the sea to fight their way up the rain-wild river to their ancestral hatching grounds. But the fledglings that emerge from the cocoons are a travesty of the dragons of old. Flightless and fractious, they soon become a danger to all and must be moved. Thymara, a rain-wilder born with scales and claws, answers the call to become one of the Dragon Keepers, to accompany the creatures upriver. Their target is the legendary elderling city of Helsingra, but no one knows if it even exists, and no one expects the Dragon Keepers to return or even survive. A friend who persuaded me to read Robin Hobb described her as writing exactly how miserable medieval times would have been in fantasy novels, so I'm not expecting this to be a cheery book. But then again, I have just listened to Kingdom of Copper and that's not a cheery book either, so maybe my audiobooks will just be non-cheery from now on. I enjoyed the first little bit of it. Odd listening to audiobooks when you don't go on long walks anymore, or if you don't have the commute to listen to them, so I don't know if I'll actually finish that this month. Next I have another reread. This is The Tangled Lands by Paolo Bacigalupi and Tobias S. Buckle. I definitely butchered that first one, I apologise. This is a collection of 3 novellas that are linked together, and I picked this up as the third book in a 3 for 2 on a whim a couple of years ago, and then read it in my book a day in June, I think, and really enjoyed it, so I'm excited to reread this. Time, the last city of a once great empire, clings to life. This is a world poisoned by its addiction to magic. Every time a spell is cast, toxic bramble sprouts bursting forth from tilled fields, thrusting up from between cobblestones. A bit of magic and bramble follows until whole cities are consumed by tangling vines. Armies hack and burn. Yet in a world that can't give up magic's sweet succour, the bramble can't be stopped. When Jaos, the alchemist, discovers a potent new weapon to wield against the bramble, his invention promises Kym freedom from fear and starvation. But these are twisted times, and the bramble is not the only corruption that blights the land. What I mostly remember about this is that it's really beautiful writing, so I'm looking forward to getting back into that. The pile next to me is growing. And next we have a frustrating reread, as these often are. This is Mask of Shadows, the first book in the Mask of Shadows duology. Ruin of Stars I read last month. I'm looking forward to rereading this, having read Ruin of Stars. I just finished this week, last week, and now I'm reading the first one again because I can't read books in order apparently, that's just not possible. Anyway, for those who don't know, Sal Leon is a thief, and a good one at that, but Sal wants nothing more than to escape the drudgery of life as a highway robber and get closer to the upper class, especially the nobles who destroyed their home. When Sal steals a flyer for an audition to become a member of the Left Hand, the Queen's personal assassins, named after the rings she wears, Sal jumps at the chance to infiltrate the court and get revenge. But the audition is a fight to the death filled with clever circus acrobats, lethal apothecaries, and vicious ex-soldiers. A childhood as a common criminal hardly prepared Sal for the trials, and as Sal succeeds in the competition and wins the heart of Elise, an intriguing scribe at court, they start to dream of a new life and a different future, but one that Sal can only have if they survive. So this book I bought because it has a non-binary protagonist, and then read it and really enjoyed it, but have not read it for a long time, and then picked up the sequel. So we will be refreshing our minds as to what happened in the first book, but all in the wrong order, as is typical for this channel. Continuing on with my own TBR and reading through books I got for Christmas last year, I have The Girl in Red by Christina Henry. This is a Red Riding Hood retelling. I think it's dystopian, so may not be the best time to read this, but hey, it's fine. This was a lovely gift from Justine over I Should Read That. Again, I don't know why you wouldn't be subscribed to her channel, but you should be. It's not safe for anyone alone in the woods, but the woman in the red jacket has no choice. Not since the crisis came, decimated the population and sent those who survived fleeing into quarantine camps that serve as breeding grounds for death, destruction and disease. Maybe not the best time. She is just a woman trying not to get killed in a world that was perfectly sane and normal until 3 months ago. There are worse threats in the woods than the things that stalk their prey at night. Men with dark desires, weak wills and evil intents, men in uniform with classified information, deadly secrets and unforgiving orders. And sometimes, just sometimes, there's something worse than all of the horrible people and vicious beasts combined. Red doesn't like to think of herself as a killer, but she isn't about to let herself get eaten up just because she's a woman alone in the woods. Again, it may not be the best time. I'll pick this up anyway. I'm not overly fussed about reading about viruses at the moment. I'm the kind of person where, for me, reading sci-fi and fantasy is completely distinct from normal life, so I don't mish the two. It's fine. It'll be fine. This book I bought myself. It's the first book I bought myself post-Christmas last year from the New Waterstones, which I've only ever been to once and now have not gone to again. This is Children of Virtue and Vengeance by Tomi Adeyemi. This is the sequel to Children of Blood and Bone. Again, we'll put spoiler on the screen if you want to avoid spoilers for book one. After battling the impossible, Zélie and Amari have finally succeeded in bringing magic back to the land of Orisha, but the ritual was more powerful than they could have imagined, reigniting the powers of not only the Magi, but of nobles with magic ancestry too. Now Zélie struggles to unite the Magi in an Orisha where the enemy is just as powerful as they are, but with civil war looming on the horizon, Zélie finds herself at a breaking point. She must discover a way to bring the kingdom together or watch as Orisha tears itself apart. I remember enjoying Children of Blood and Bone. Again, have not read it for probably 2 years, but enjoying some standard YA, and I was about to say there's not a lot of YA on this list, but I'm about to come to all of the YA. I still think this is going to be really good fun. I think we're going to have a good time re-meeting these characters. I have a feeling Children of Blood and Bone is in my rereads jar somewhere, so maybe we'll have another Mask of Shadows event, who knows. Another sequel. It's pretty much all sequels from here on out, I think. Heart So Fierce and Broken by Bridget Kemmerer. This is the sequel to A Curse So Dark and Lonely. Yes, I know the titles of books. Again, spoilers, I will put them on screen. Harper has freed Prince Ren from the curse that almost destroyed his kingdom, but all is not well in Emberfall. Rumours are rife that there is a rival heir with a stronger claim to the throne, and that Princess Harper of Dissy is nothing but a fraud. Grey has fled the castle carrying a terrible secret. When he's discovered by soldiers and returned to Iron Rose by force, Grey's allegiances begin to shift, and as he grows closer to an enemy princess, he is forced to decide whether he will stand against Ren for the crown he never wanted. This was a gift from Books of Amber, by the way. You should go check her out as well. I'm interested by this. I liked the first one, but I didn't really see how it could have a sequel. It wrapped off really nicely. Maybe the last kind of couple of pages were sequel-y enough. I'm interested to read this. I liked the representation of chronic illness in the previous book. I think it will be good. This book was a gift from Moon. Hi Moon, thank you very much for your gift. This was a birthday present. This is Chosen by Kirsten White. Don't need me to tell you how much I love Kirsten White on this channel. This is the second in her Buffy series. So the first book is Slayer, and then we have Chosen. Again, I will stick spoiler warning. Now that Nina has turned the Watcher's castle into a utopia for hurt and lonely demons, she's still waiting for the utopia part to kick in. With her sister Artemis gone and only a few people remaining at the castle, including her still distant mother, Nina has her hands full. Plus, though she gained back her Slayer powers from Leo, they're not feeling quite right after being held by the seriously evil succubus Eve, aka fake Watcher's council member and Leo's mother. And while Nina is dealing with the darkness inside, there's also a new threat on the outside, portended by an odd triangle symbol that seems to be popping up everywhere in connection with Sean's demon drum rig, because one near apocalypse just isn't enough, right? The darkness always finds you, and once again, it's coming for the Slayer. I enjoyed Slayer. I think my biggest takeaway from it was that it did a lot of Buffy explanation. It was written very much for people who hadn't encountered Buffy, as well as for fans, whereas I don't know if this one will be the same, because in theory she won't have had to have done all of that explaining. So I was interested to see where this one goes. I love Kirsten White's writing. Everything she's written, I've enjoyed the writing of it. I think Slayer was the book I felt least connected to, so maybe Chosen will make that different. I don't know. Now we get on to NetGalley reads. First, I have The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. This is out from Orbit on March the 26th, so this is already out. Let me read you the summary. Every city has a soul. Some are as ancient as myths and others are new and destructive as children. New York City, she's got 5. But every city also has a dark side. Roiling ancient evil stirs beneath the earth, threatening to destroy the city and her 5 protectors unless they can come together and stop it once and for all. I am looking forward to reading this. I love N.K. Jemisin's writing. I've enjoyed everything of hers that I've read. My biggest concern is that I don't have the kind of connection and cultural background knowledge to New York that I think this book is going to need. So I'll be really interested to hear the perspective from people who've lived in New York, know New York well. I've been there, but when you go to New York at age 12, it's not really the same experience. But I am looking forward to reading that. Then I have a book that's out at the start of May. I have The Mermaid, the Witch and the Sea by Maggie Takuda Hall. This is out from Candlewick Press. Aboard the pirate ship Dove, Flora the girl takes on the identity of Florian the man to earn the respect and protection of the crew. For Flora, former starving urchin, the brutal life of a pirate is about about survival. Don't trust, don't stick out, and don't feel. But on this voyage, Flora is drawn to the Lady Evelyn Hasegawa, who is headed to an arranged marriage she dreads. Flora doesn't expect to be taken under Evelyn's wing, and Evelyn doesn't expect to find such a deep bond with the pirate Florian. Neither expects to fall in love. Soon the unlikely pair set in motion a wild escape that will free a captured mermaid coveted for her blood, and involve the mysterious Pirate Supreme, an opportunistic witch, double agents, and the all-encompassing sea herself. Deftly entwining swashbuckling action and quiet magic, Maggie Takuda Hall's inventive debut novel conjures a diverse cast of characters seeking mastery over their fates while searching for answers to big questions about identity, power, and love. I don't think I need to go into huge amounts of detail about why I'm interested in this. Is it going to be gay pirates? Please. Next, I have the new book out from Melissa Bashar-Doost, Girl, Serpent, Thorn. This is out from Hodder and Stoughton on May the 12th. Again, a lot of May releases. I'm trying to get on top of them. Her first book, Girls of Snow and Glass, I want to say, is a Snow White retelling, which I really enjoyed. This is a captivating and original fairy tale about a girl cursed to be poisonous to the touch and who discovers what power might lie in such a curse. There was and there was not, as all stories begin, a princess cursed to be poisonous to the touch. But for Soraya, who has lived her life hidden away, apart from her family, safe only in her gardens, it's not just a story. As the day of her twin brother's wedding approaches, Soraya must decide if she's willing to step outside of the shadows for the first time. Below in the dungeon is a demon who holds knowledge that she craves, the answer to her freedom. And above is a young man who isn't afraid of her, whose eyes linger not with fear but with an understanding of who she is beneath the poison. Soraya thought she knew her place in the world, but when her choices lead to consequences she never imagined, she begins to question who she is and who she is becoming. Human or demon, princess or monster. It is feeling a little bit, I'm pointing here because I have the first two, it's a little bit Sin Eater's Daughter. I have poison skin that you can't touch unless you're in love with me. Ooh, touch me. The other one is the Midas touch one, Touch of Gold. That whole don't touch me, I have poisonous skin unless you're a hot boy, in which case touch me because you'll probably be fine. So who knows, maybe that one will be okay. We shall see. It's finally time to read The Skyweaver by Kristen Ciccarelli? I'm never really sure. This has been sat on my NetGalley for probably 6 months. Spoilers for the first two Ixari novels. Skip ahead. At the end of one world there always lies another. Sophia, a soldier, knows her role in this world, to serve the king of Furgard, helping to maintain the peace in her often troubled nation. Eris, a deadly pirate, has no such conviction. Known as the Death Dancer for her ability to evade even the most determined of pursuers, she possesses a superhuman power to move between worlds. When one can roam from dimension to dimension, can one ever be home? Can love and loyalty truly exist? Now Sophia and Eris, sworn enemies, find themselves on a common mission to find Asher, the last Namsara. From the port city of Darmor to the fabled faraway Star Isles, their search and their stories become woven ever more tightly together as they discover the uncertain fate they're hurtling towards may just be a shared one, in this world and the next. I enjoyed the first two books in the Ixari series. The first book I really loved, with Asher as the main character. The second one I was a bit like, Mainly it's going to be a real achievement to finally have this off my TBR. This next book comes out from Tor at the end of May. This is the new book by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is The Doors of Eden. I listened to and adored Children of Time and Children of Ruin. I think they were so amazing. I've not read any other Adrian Tchaikovsky, but I'm completely open to doing so, and I had the opportunity to read his new book and I thought, that sounds like a good idea. 4 years ago, two girls went looking for monsters on Bodmin Moor. Only one came back. Lee thought she'd lost Mal, but now she's miraculously returned. But what happened on that day on the moors? And where has she been all this time? Mal's reappearance hasn't gone unnoticed by MI5 officers either, and Lee isn't the only one with questions. Julian Sabre is investigating an attack on top physicist KML Khan. This leads Julian to clash with agents of an unknown power, and they may or may not be human. His only clue is grainy footage showing a woman who supposedly died on Bodmin Moor. Dr. Khan's research was theoretical. Then she found cracks between our world and parallel Earths. Now these cracks are widening, revealing extraordinary creatures, and as the doors crash open, anything could come through. Katie and I are actually watching I can't remember which season of Doctor Who it is, but the one with Amy and Rory. So cracks in the universe and things falling through is feeling very appropriate. There's not a lot of sci-fi in this pile at the moment, so it'll be interesting to read some more of that. I read some sci-fi towards the end of this month. I tend to push it towards the end, apparently. So there we go. To round out my 19 book TBR, because I like having 19 books, I don't know why, it just feels like a good number. I have two physical arcs that technically don't come out till much later, but I don't want to put off reading them. Ashley Poston's Bookish and the Beast. This is the third book in the Once Upon a Con series, so we have Gikarella, The Princess and the Fangirl, and now Bookish and the Beast. This is obviously a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but in this amazing world. If you haven't checked out these books and you are a geeky person, I really think you should. They are pretty much the only YA contemporary I really truly enjoy and recommend, because they are kind of fantasy. Anyway, they're like romance novels crossed with fantasy, sci-fi, crossed with just a love of fandom. Really would recommend. Potential spoilers for the other books in Once Upon a Con, I'm not sure. Rosie Thorne is feeling stuck on her college application essays in her small town and on that mysterious General Son cosplayer she met at ExcelsiorCon. Most of all, she's stuck in her grief over her mother's death. Her only solace was her late mother's library of rare Starfield novels, but even that disappeared when they sold it off to pay off hospital bills. In contrast, Vance Raines has been Hollywood royalty for as long as he can remember, with all the privilege and scrutiny that entails. But when a tabloid scandal catches up to him, he's forced to hide out somewhere the paparazzi would never expect to find him. Small town USA. At least there's a library in the house. Too bad he doesn't read. When Rosie and Vance's paths collide and a rare book is accidentally destroyed, Rosie finds herself working to repay the debt. And while most Starfield superfans would jump at the chance to work in close proximity to the Vance Raines, Rosie has discovered something about Vance. He's a jerk, and she can't stand him. The feeling is mutual. But as Vance and Rosie begrudgingly get to know each other, their careful masks come off, and they may just find that there's more at risk in shutting each other out than in opening their hearts. It's fanfic. It's so good. And last, you will probably have expected this if you've seen my recent vlogs, I have The Camelot Betrayal by Kirsten White. Yes, there are 2 Kirsten White books on this TBR. No apologies. Spoilers for the first book in the Camelot Rising trilogy. Everything is as it should be in Camelot. King Arthur is assembling his round table with Queen Guinevere at his side. Yet every night Guinevere is plagued by dreams of darkness and unknowable power creeping beneath the castle. Guinevere might have accepted her role, but she still can't find a place for herself in all of it. The closer she gets to the people around her. Brangien pining for her lost love, Isolde Lancelot fighting to prove her worth as Queen's Knight, and Arthur everything to everyone and thus never quite enough for Guinevere, the emptier she feels. She has no memories of her childhood, no sense of who she truly was before she was Guinevere. The more she tries to claim herself as queen, the more she wonders whether Mordred was right. She doesn't belong. She never will. When a rescue goes awry and results in the death of something precious, a devastated Guinevere returns to Camelot to find the greatest threat yet, not in the form of a dark queen or an invading army, but in the form of the real Guinevere's younger sister. Is her deception at an end? And who is she really deceiving? Camelot or herself? Again, I could wax lyrical about Kirsten White, but basically I'm just really excited to read the sequel to the first book. I want to know if it gets gay. That is my 19-book TBR for April. There's some really great stuff in this, and my TBR shelf is getting ever smaller. I hope that you have some exciting reading planned for April. Please do link me to your TBR videos, let me know what you're reading, comment below if you are reading any of these books. I'm open to buddy reading them, let me know. Be sure to follow me on all of my socials, they will be linked below, and I will see you in the next one.